Let me ask you something. And I need you to really sit with this before you answer. Just kind of think about it. When was the last time that you had honest feedback about your leadership and its effectiveness? And I'm not talking about a consultant doing performance or review. I'm not talking about somebody who was trying to keep their job, and they were scared to tell you the truth. But when was the last time somebody really told you about your leadership? If it took you longer than 5 seconds to answer that question, then that's what this whole episode is about. It's the confidence trap. Okay. That's what we're talking about this week, because here's what I know after sitting with executives, CEOs, directors, and high performing leaders across many, many industries. The most dangerous leader in the room is not the one who's failing. The most dangerous leader is the one who's succeeding by yesterday's standards while completely being off guard to what's coming. That's the confidence trap. And today we're going to talk about it and we're going to dive a little deeper in it. So, welcome back to Authentic Encounters, Lena Speaks, the podcast. I'm your host, Lena Morris, founder and CEO of Authentic Encounters, LLC, where we help leaders and organizations build the kind of cultures that actually work. Not the kind that look good on your website, the kind that your people actually want to show up for and want to invest in and want to fight for. All right. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you found us. I hope you enjoyed this show. It is for executive CEOs and high-performing leaders who are not afraid to do the real work. Not the easy work, not the work that makes you look good in board meetings and things of that nature. The work that makes you better. The work that makes your team better and your organization a place where people want to actually stay and grow and give their best. If you've been here with me for now the 9 episodes that I've done, thank you. Thank you for continuing to show up, for sharing the conversations. Thank you for sliding into my inbox and letting me know what it's landing with you and how it's impacting you. It really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much. Now, back to today's topic. I want to be honest with you about where this came from. I've been in a lot of rooms lately, and I've been sitting across from senior leaders, people with real authority, real budgets, real responsibility. And I'm watching a pattern, and it's concerning to me. Not because these leaders are bad, because they're not bad. They're not bad people. In fact, most of them are brilliant, and most of them have worked very hard to get where they're at today. And I don't want to diminish that. But a lot of them are operating in a kind of a fog. They're confident, maybe a little too confident for what some of these situations warrant. And that confidence is insulating them from the feedback, the reality checks, and the honest conversations that are desperately needed and that they desperately need to hear. Confidence without self-awareness is not a leadership asset. It's a liability with a title. And the data backs this up. The conference board surveyed CEOs coming into 2026. And here's what they found. 43% of U.S. CEOs said that uncertainty is their number one economic threat. 43%. That's almost half. And yet at the same time, 9 of 10 CEOs still expect revenue and profitability growth this year. You see the tension there? Do you kind of see what's really happening? They are deeply worried about the world around them and simultaneously completely confident about their own performance. And I'm not saying confidence is bad. It's not. Confidence is definitely necessary. But there's a kind of confidence that closes you off from information that you need the most. And that's the trap we're talking about. We've got 3 segments today. First, we're going to talk about what it actually means to pass the mirror test. It is what I call true self-awareness at the executive level. Then we're going to get into the blind spot economy, the specific things that high performers are sometimes systematically missing right now in 2026. And in segment 3, we're going to talk about the authentic leader's edge. What actually changes when you get honest with yourself and your organization? Let's get into it, good people. I want to start by dismantling something because when most people hear the word self-awareness, they think therapy, they think journaling, they think about the warm, fuzzy feelings. And if you're a hard charging executive, you might have already rolled your eyes and be like, Lena, I'm checking out. 2 fingers like a player. Goodbye. This doesn't apply to me. But I need you to stay with me because I'm not talking about that. Strategic self-awareness is a business function. It's a competitive edge. It's one of the most financially significant capabilities a leader can have. Here's how I define the mirror test for executives. It's 3 questions, and I want you to answer them honestly. Not the way you would answer in a performance review, not the way you would answer if someone was listening and were recording you. I want you to be real honest. Nobody is watching. Question 1, do you know what your team actually thinks about your leadership? Not what they tell you, but what they tell each other. Question 2, can you name 3 specific ways your leadership style is creating friction, confusion, or hesitation in your organization right now? And question 3, this one hits different. When you make a decision that turns out to be wrong, what happens next? Do you own it publicly or do you quietly redirect the narrative? Most leaders can answer question 1 with confidence. Very few can answer question 2 without flinching. And almost no one can answer question 3 honestly the first time. I work with a lot of executives who are phenomenally skilled at managing upward. They know how to present in the boardroom. They know how to position a strategy. They have incredible optics, but when I start asking them what their direct reports would say about them working for them, I mean, really say if there were no consequences, the room gets very quiet. I want to be fair because I don't think most executives are oblivious by choice. I think they are isolated by structure. Think about this for a second. The higher you go in an organization, the less honest information you receive. Not because people are lying to you, though sometimes they are. Let's just be honest. They're afraid of your reaction. They're afraid of being labeled as the person who told the CEO something that they didn't want to hear. And listen, I've been that person. I'm sure some CEOs can tell you that. So what happens? You get filtered information, sanitized updates, and you get praise where there really should have probably been some pushback. And over time, you start to mistake the absence of resistance for alignment. You mistake the absence of complaints for satisfaction. And this is one of the most dangerous mistakes a leader can make. I was working with a senior leader. I won't share the details of the course, but they were in a room full of their people and they kept saying, I have an open door policy. My team can always come to me. And when I asked the team separately, what I heard was, we know the door is open. We just don't know what happens when we walk through it. That is the confidence trap in action. That leader believed they had uh, made themselves accessible to their team, but everybody else saw it completely different. And they never connected the two realities until we did a 360. That is the mirror test. It's not just looking at the mirror and seeing yourself, it's being willing to let other people hold the mirror and actually looking at what they show you. Self awareness is not what you think about yourself, it's the gap between what you think and what others experience. So, what does passing the mirror test look like practically? It looks like a leader who is actively seeking out the uncomfortable feedback, not just the flavored feedback with compliments, but the real thing. It looks like the leader who can sit in a 360 debrief and not get defensive when they hear something that doesn't match their self image. It looks like a leader who has people around them, coaches, peers, mentors, who are not afraid to say, that's not working, or here's what I see that you might be missing. It looks like humility that is not performance. Because there's a kind of performative humility that executives do. Oh, I'm always learning. And listen, nobody's perfect. And then the moment somebody challenges them, the real them come out, right? It comes out. They get defensive or dismissive. Real humility isn't what happens when cameras are off. Real humility is what you do with feedback when it costs you something. Passing the mirror test is not a one-time event. It's a practice, honestly. It's something that most leaders will continue to do throughout the course of their career. It should be built into the rhythms of your development, and you should be consistently and intentionally looking for this feedback and receiving it and processing it. The next thing I want to talk about is the blind spot economy. All right, let's talk about what's actually happening right now, because it's not just a leadership philosophy conversation. This is a situational conversation. The world has changed, and some things that made leaders successful in the past, in the last few decades, are now becoming liabilities. I'm now going to name 3 specific blind spots that I'm seeing consistently in executive leadership right now. 3 things that high performers are missing, not because they aren't smart, but because confidence, success, and isolation make them harder to see. Blind spot number 1, you think your people are with you, and they're not. I know that's a hard one, but stay with me. Calm down, simmer down. The data on workforce trust right now is not good. Employee engagement is fragile. Teams are tired, rightfully so. And a lot of people are still processing, consciously or not, years of disruption, change, uncertainty, and instability. And to top that off, you've been making decisions under pressure that have affected their lives. Restructures, policy shifts, return to office mandates, budget cuts. Whew, that's a lot. Now, you may have communicated those decisions very well. Nobody's saying you didn't. You may have hit all the right talking points, but communication is not the same as trust, and trust is not the same as alignment. What I often see is this: a leader believes their team is aligned because nobody is pushing back, but what they're actually seeing is compliance. People doing what they are told to do because they have to, not because they believe in what they're doing. And the difference in between alignment and compliance is invisible on the surface. You won't see it in a town hall meeting. You'll see it in attrition. You'll see it in performance over time. You'll see it in the quality of work that people stop bringing to the table because they've stopped believing in what really matters. And they probably stopped believing in you. Silence is not alignment. Silence is what compliance looks like when people have learned it's not safe to disagree. The leaders who are winning right now, genuinely winning, not just reporting good numbers for the quarter, are the ones who have done the work to build real trust. Not manufactured culture initiatives, not, all the free giveaways, pizzas, gift cards, but the kind that happens when people believe their leader sees them, hears them, and will advocate for them, even when it's inconvenient. That requires self awareness. That requires the mirror test. Knowing that your people actually think, that is true leadership. Blind spot number 2, AI is not the problem you think it is. Now, I want to talk to you about AI for a minute. And I know that it feels like, you're tired of this conversation because everybody's talking about AI, but I'm going to come at it just from a little bit of a different perspective and angle than most. Okay. The PwC Global CEO Survey, which surveyed over 4,000 chief executives across 95 countries, found something that stopped me cold. Fewer than a quarter of those CEOs said AI is applied extensively across their core business activities. And most of them reported no meaningful revenue gains or cost reductions from AI yet. So we're spending, we're investing, we're talking about it constantly, and most organizations are still in the very early stages of actually making it work. But here's the blind spot that I'm seeing. Most executives are treating AI like it's a technology problem. Like if they just get the right platform, the right tools, the right technical implementation, it'll work. And I'm here to tell you that AI is not a technology problem. AI is a people problem. It is a culture problem. It is a leadership problem. The reason AI adoption is stalling in most organizations is not the technology. The reason that the culture hasn't changed, people don't trust tools because they don't trust decisions behind the tools. Employees are afraid of what AI adoption means for their jobs. And instead of having honest conversations around that, leaders are just announcing new platforms and wondering why nobody's using them. You cannot implement a new way of working without first building trust and psychological safety that makes new ways of working possible. That's not a technology statement. That is a leadership statement. The leaders who will get the most out of AI in real terms, not theoretical terms, are the ones whose teams feel safe enough to experiment, safe enough to fail, and safe enough to tell their leader when something isn't working. That culture doesn't come from a platform. It comes from you. You cannot automate trust. You cannot AI your way into a high performing culture. Culture is still a leadership job, and that's your job. And then blind spot number 3. You are more isolated than you know. This is the one I feel most strongly about because the one that nobody talks about, especially in rooms full of accomplished people who are supposed to have it together, leadership at the top is lonely, and not just personally lonely, strategically lonely. The information ecosystem around a senior leadership is distorted. I mentioned this earlier. The higher you go, the more filtered the information you receive. But it goes beyond that. Most C-suite leaders do not have a single space where they can fully be honest, where they can fully say, I don't know what I'm doing here. I feel a little bit lost. Where can they share their fear about upcoming decisions without worrying about how it will be perceived? Where they can get real, unfiltered, caring pushback from someone who understands their world, their perspective, the weight on their shoulders. Their board is not that space. Their direct reports, definitely not the space. Their peers inside the organizations have competing interests, and their friends and family, as much as they love them, usually just don't have the context. The Conference Board survey found that 43 of U.S. CEOs name uncertainty at the top of their concern heading into 2026, as I mentioned. And I believe that. And I believe they feel uncertain. What I also believe is that most of them are carrying that uncertainty almost entirely alone. And that is a business risk because leaders who carry that kind of weight without processing it, without somewhere to put it, without someone to help them think through it, start making decisions from anxiety instead of strategy. They start defaulting to what has worked before instead of what is needed in the moment and what a new start requires. They're protecting themselves instead of growing their organization. And that's fair, but we got to move on from that. Isolation does not produce better leaders. It produces defended ones. A defended leader cannot build an open culture. You cannot create what you are not willing to embody. The most resilient leaders I know, the ones that navigate disruption and uncertainty and still show up consistently, have invested in honest peer relationships, in coaches who challenge them, in spaces where they can be real. That's not weakness. That's infrastructure. That is the infrastructure of sustainable leadership. Okay, we've named the trap. We've named the blind spots. Now I want to talk to you about on what's on the other side, because I'm not here to leave you with the problem. That's not what we do on this show or in our organization. We name the real and then we move towards something better. I want to tell you what I've seen happen. Not something that's made up or in the movies or in training videos. I'm talking about what happens when real leaders have the courage to choose authenticity over armor, right? When they decide to stop performing and they actually start doing the real work of knowing themselves, knowing their team, and leading from truth. It changes everything. And I literally mean that. Everything. It is such an honor and a privilege to see this transformation. The first thing that changes is trust. When a leader shows up as a real person, not somebody that's manufactured, not too polished, but, get to the point where they show up their real authentic self, something shifts in the room, in the people. People start bringing them information instead of managing the information that they're giving them. People start investing in the outcomes instead of just completing tasks and assignments mediocrely because they can feel that you have invested too. Now, they actually want to do the work. They actually want to show up and help you. And trust is not soft. Trust is a business metric. High performing organizations outperform low trust organizations every day. They retain talent longer and they adapt faster. And they weather disruption better because the foundation holds. When the foundation is honesty and accountability and genuine connection, it holds. Trust is not a soft skill. Trust is hard work that makes all the other work possible. Hear me when I say that. The second thing that changes is decision quality. When you build a culture where people feel safe to tell you the truth, where your team knows that bringing you bad news is not career suicide, you start making decisions with better information. You stop making decisions based on what people think you want to hear, and you start making decisions based on what's actually true. That sounds obvious, but I want you to think about it. The last 3 significant decisions you made, what was the quality of the information you were working with? How much of what you heard came from people who were genuinely trying to give you the full picture, and how much was filtered, softened, or shaped to get a particular response from you? Those are just questions you can ask yourself. It's not judgment. The third thing that changes is what I like to call organizational oxygen. When a leader models authenticity, when they're willing to say, I was wrong, or I don't have all the answers, or I need your input before I can make this call, they give permission for the entire organization to breathe, to be a human, to take risks, and to innovate. And innovation does not happen in cultures where people are afraid to be wrong. Innovation happens when people feel safe enough to try something new, to fail with dignity, and to learn from it without being punished. That's culture. That oxygen comes from the top. It comes from you, my friend. Now, some of you listening are thinking, okay, Lena, this sounds great, but how? How do I actually do this? I've been leading a certain way for 20 some odd years, and I have a reputation. I have a board. I have shareholders. I can't just up and walk in tomorrow and be a different leader. And I'm not saying you should be. Please don't. That's not healthy. And you're right, you can't, and nobody is asking you to do that. What I am asking you to do is to start with honesty. Start with one honest conversation that you've been avoiding. Start with one piece of feedback that you know you've been deflecting, okay? Or give yourself that space, that one room, that one relationship that you can have a structured experience where you can be fully real without consequences. Okay? Because change at the leadership level is not an event. It is a direction. It is a commitment to moving, however incrementally, toward more honesty, more self-awareness, and more authentic engagement with the people you lead. And the leaders who make that commitment, who stay in that direction, they build something that performance metrics can't fully even capture. They build loyalty, they build organizational health, and they build the kind of culture that people fight to be a part of, because they feel seen, they feel valued, developed, not managed, not processed, but they feel developed. This is the authentic leader's edge. It's not a personality type, it's not a style, it's a decision every single day. It's a decision. Authenticity is not a trait you either have or you don't. It's a choice you make or you don't. Every single day. It's a choice. All right. Before we close today, I want to give you 3 questions to sit with this week. Not to journal it if if that's not your thing, not to share publicly if you're not ready to do that, just to sit with it privately and honestly. Question 1. What is one piece of feedback you keep receiving in different forms from different people that you haven't fully let it in yet? What are you still deflecting? Number 2, who in your life is actually allowed to tell you that you're wrong? Who can actually do this? And if it's nobody, what does that tell you? Okay? Think about that. And finally, 3, what would change in your organization in the next 90 days if you led 10% more honestly? Just 10%. Not a whole reinvention of yourself, but 10%. What would that make possible in your organization? Those are your homework questions, good people. You don't have to answer them for me, but I encourage you to answer them for yourself. Now, if today's conversation landed for you, if you found yourself nodding along or uncomfortable in a way that felt productive, I want to invite you into something very special, something that's kicking off as we're going and getting ready to go into the second quarter of the year. First, the 360 Leadership Insight Sprint. This is a structured, confidential 360-degree assessment experience designed specifically for senior leaders. It's not a check-in. It's not a check-the-box exercise. It's a deep, intentional look at the gap between the leader you believe you are and the leader your organization is experiencing. And we debrief it together in a way that is honest, actionable, and completely focused on your growth. If the mirror test resonated with you today, this is the next step. We have limited spots. You can find more information about it if you just reach out to me, DM me directly on LinkedIn. I would love to talk more with you about it and get you set up and see if this is the right fit for you. Now, for some of you who have already had the 360, we have the Authentic Leader Collective. This is a membership community for high-performing executives and leaders who are ready for the kind of honest conversation, peer accountability, and strategic growth that you simply cannot get inside your own organization. It's a room where you can be real, where you can be challenged, and where you can grow alongside other leaders who are doing the same type of work. If what you heard today about isolation resonated, if you realize that you don't actually have a space like that in your life, then the collective was built for you. Feel free to go to AuthenticEncountersLLC.com and fill out the contact us form, and we will follow up with you within 24 hours. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe wherever you're listening, whatever platform you're listening on. Leave a review, leave a comment. It matters more than you know. It helps to spread these conversations to other leaders who need it. The Authentic Encounters newsletter drops every Tuesday on Beehive. If you want the deep dive version of today's topic with additional frameworks, resources, and a personal reflection from me, go sign up. The link is in the show notes. I'll leave you with this. The most powerful leaders are not the ones who have no blind spots. They're the ones who are brave enough to look. I'm Lena Morris. This is Lena Speaks, the podcast. Thank you for being here. Now go lead for real this time.